Good evening and welcome to Thursdays with NAMI. My name is Peg Morrison. I'll be your host for the evening. I am the Director of Programs with NAMI North Carolina. That's the National Alliance on Mental Illness North Carolina. I'm glad you're here. Thursdays with NAMI is our way of building candid, authentic conversations and communities around mental health. May is Mental Health Month, and tomorrow is Children's Mental Health Awareness Day. Our guest tonight kind of fits with both of these themes, as she will be sharing a journey of recovery that began in her youth. Angel Barrino stands out because her story includes both trauma and difficulty, but also awards, accomplishments, and accolades. We'll be getting with her in just one moment. As usual, the first part of our show will be an interview with our guest. Partway through, we'll show a lighthearted video of the week, and then we'll spend time answering questions from you, members of our virtual studio audience. First, we want to do a quick word from our sponsors. Thursdays with NAMI is funded in part by the North Carolina Department of Health and Human Services, Division of Mental Health, Developmental Disabilities, and Substance Abuse Services through the Federal Community Mental Health Services Block Grant Fund. We appreciate their guidance and their supports. And now, without further ado, Angel Barrino is here with us tonight. She's an award-winning educator and entrepreneur, an Amazon best-selling author. Don't we all have that on our bucket list? She is a sexual assault advocate and an inspirational speaker. In addition, she's managing director of Angel Be Inspired, a coaching and consulting company. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you, Peg. I am so honored to be here.
Yeah, well, I'm thrilled that you are. We always like to know a little bit about our guests and what brought you to the topic of mental health and recovery. Tell us your story in a nutshell.
Wow, where do I begin? I think I'll just start kind of where in my youth, I really suffered with depression and some trauma experiences in my family in childhood, being a granddaughter of alcoholism. And, you know, that experience alone just really took me to a place where I was just like, I don't want this to happen to me. I don't want this to happen to my daughter, you know. So I think it was my early 20s. I realized that I really needed some help, and I had a mental health breakdown. I was suffering greatly from depression and anxiety. And I just one day everything just fell apart. And I decided that I needed more help and I needed some care. So I checked myself into a psychiatric hospital in Greensboro, North Carolina, so that I could get what I needed to be a better mom and to be a better person. And I spent 7 days there, sitting in groups, sitting there, you know, getting treatment and different things, and realized that at some point in my life, I know that I'll be helping people do the same thing, but I don't know when. And so fast forward through all these years, here I am working for a counseling center and a crisis center, doing the same type of work that I was receiving treatment for. And so I'm really excited about that. The journey has been a lot of twists and turns, you know, to come to that final place of just realizing that you were destined to help people, Angel. I don't know how, you know, how that was going to take place or what that was going to look like, but I knew that that was part of my journey.
Mm. Wow, that's I always love when people have their own recovery and their own struggle, and then they realize how much it helps them to help others.
Yeah.
That's it does fill my cup as well as filling the other person's cup. So so what's been your biggest challenge as a trauma survivor and as an advocate?
Having so many trauma experiences and not even realizing that I suffered from PTSD until a few years ago. Like I knew that there were things going on, but the biggest challenge for me initially was the dreams and the flashbacks and, you know, just the anxiety itself, because I would literally have panic attacks at work and didn't know what was happening to me. And my coworkers didn't know what was happening to me either. And so I would have to leave work. I took a lot of time from work, you know, battling the depression and the anxiety. and just the trauma itself. And so the biggest challenge was just remembering those things until I began to practice the things that I had learned all these years. And then even as recently as 3 years ago, stepping into a wellness recovery action plan class and understanding that you can control your anxiety, Angel. You can control these thoughts. And so I really began to practice those things within the last 3, 4 years, and it has really worked for me. So that's, just kind of where I am with the trauma itself, is that I'm learning to manage it better.
Hmm, right. Yeah, that is a process. So it sounds like there were some family dynamics, maybe some early memories that you put aside so you could survive, and then they come back up as they always
Yes,
do.
yes, absolutely.
Got it. So you work today at Phoenix Counseling in Gastonia as a sexual assault advocate. What does that look like?
Wow. My days are so, I just shared with my boss yesterday that I've never had a dull moment since I've been working at Phoenix, and I've been there since March of last year. And every day is just a new experience. And so I get to work with people who come from all walks of life, no matter where they are, who have sexual assault histories or current sexual assault, some DV. Usually those are intimate partner violence situations, and they also include sexual assault. So what that kind of looks like is that I provide advocacy, crisis support. We go to the hospital, we answer hospital calls. We're 24/7 crisis center, and the only, or one of the only crisis centers in this area. And so we cover Gaston and Lincoln County. My colleague covers Lincoln County, so we sort of flip flop each week. Like this week, I'm on call, and so we provide rape kits, sexual assault literature, all of those different things. A couple of weeks ago, I did 4 presentations for the law enforcement for Gaston County, Gaston PD, and Gastonia City PD and Gaston County PD. So we do a lot of coordination with resources in the community. My grant has covered anything from housing to food, clothing for a victim's children, just all those different things. And we're not limited to helping women. I do have some male clients who have suffered with sexual assault and molestation and different things. And so we support them as well, try to make sure that they have the needs met, whatever their needs are. Some are homeless, so we make sure that they are safe and things like that as well. It's just a lot that goes into it. It's like trying to list everything. It's like, oh, wow, we do a lot. And I do a lot for Gaston County as far as that goes.
It sure sounds like it. That would definitely keep you on your toes. Excuse me. Mild disruption. We're going to just keep focusing. And tell me, what do you wish people knew about post-traumatic stress disorder that they don't seem to know?
Well, for the victim, is that the challenge is letting them know that it wasn't their fault. Whatever traumatic experiences that they have had, that it wasn't their fault. It was the other person who inflicted those things upon them. Um, that was their stuff. And then for the community is understanding that people who suffer from PTSD or anything related to PTSD, they face a number of different challenges every single day. Just sometimes getting out of bed is a major issue for them, or just going outside, anything that they have to do to fight through the feelings, the thoughts, or whatever that they are experiencing is very difficult for them. So have some compassion, have some empathy for people, and explaining that sometimes to individuals or helping them to see a different perspective is often very challenging. Even with some of our clients, we have to explain to them, trauma is different for everyone. Everybody does not experience trauma in the same manner, and you won't respond to it or react to it in the same manner. So just having that understanding, making sure that people understand that people are affected differently.
Mm-hmm. That is a big thing. All mental disorders have this feature where it's different depending on the person. You can have different
Right.
symptoms, a different style, different intensity. But post-traumatic stress, it seems even more so than
Right.
typical mental health conditions, because one person might experience something as a trauma that another person doesn't.
Exactly.
Yeah, it sounds like you really do have a very full plate, and I'm so glad you're doing the work that you're doing, because we know there's a lot of need out there. So many people experience trauma. So many people experience that and need help, and need that validation that you provide. So you have many achievements, and you've also dealt with serious challenges as well. And as you mentioned earlier, you're the granddaughter of alcoholism. You struggled at times with depression, severe anxiety, um, throughout your childhood and into adulthood. How do you balance self-care with getting everything done that you've gotten done?
One practice that I have really implemented, and I do it one because I do this for my clients every single day, teaching them wellness recovery, is carving out that time for self-care, and more so even now with working as a sexual assault advocate, because a lot of times you can take that trauma on and just sort of internalize it. And so I do a lot of wellness, a lot of walking, reading, listening to music. For the first time in a long time, I took a bubble bath a couple of weeks ago, and that was just so amazing for me. Um, because I'm so busy, a lot of times I just don't have the time to do that particular wellness tools. I said, I'm going to do that tonight. And so just sometimes if it's cold outside, I'll turn on the fireplace and just sit in the living room with all the lights off with Angel and I, and just turn on all, light all these candles and just sit there and just think and just rest. So I make a point of including self-care and wellness into every single day. No matter what is going on, I will take at least 15 minutes every day just for me. And I tell my clients to do the same thing. And so a lot of them think that work is a wellness tool, and it is, because we all need that type of connection with others. We need income, we need all these different things to help life work. But when you work so much that you don't really take care of yourself, things just start to get very stressful. So I will even stress to them, yes, work is a wellness tool, but you need to take 15 minutes at least away from work. So my
Mm,
rule is 15 minutes, 15 to 20 minutes just for you.
absolutely. And for those who may have tuned in a little bit later, Angel is actually the name of your lovely
My
little
dog.
dog, in addition to
Yes.
your yeah. So when she says Angel and I, that's actually her little fur baby in her.
Yeah.
That's very sweet. What role has faith played in your healing process?
Oh, wow. Tremendous, tremendous, Peg. I honestly, I'm a faith walker. And if it had not been for my creator in a lot of instances, I don't think that I would still be here.
Mm,
Um, it's a major thing for me. I pray every single day, even if I can't really get out of bed like I want to some days, I still pray. Listen to worship music, try to encourage others with scripture and different things like that, because a lot of people are struggling and a lot of people are suffering. And so, for me, I can't live without it. Like, I have to have that. That is an element of my life that is so important. And so that's what I live by every single day.
mm. Was that always a, a core part of who you are?
It has been. I haven't always been like the person who does everything that I'm supposed to do or do everything right. But the core of who I am has always been faith, because that's how my parents raised me. And I had to find my own path. I had to find my own way. I'm not a real proponent of religious or religion per se, but just that spiritual component, and just, prayer, and making sure that I treat people the way that I want to be treated, and extend courtesy and compassion and love and forgiveness and all of those things. That is a core part of who I am.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. All righty. And so, of course, in our world today, we're talking about this more and more, along with mental health issues. there's so much stigma and discrimination. It comes with being a person of color. Of course, it comes with having mental health challenges. Then there's also sexism. How has that impacted your journey?
Um, that's so hard because I've had experiences where I have been racially profiled. There have been instances where that has happened to me. There have been instances where I have been demoted in positions because of who I am. There have been times where I remember vividly, if I can use this example, and it struck me as just, I don't know, I don't even know how I felt when she said it, but I was in a meeting a long time ago, many years ago. I was working for this company, and I had been asked to be a subject matter expert for my team. And my supervisor and one of my coworkers called me into a meeting with them to share what information I had gained from being in the subject matter expert training. And so I went in and I'm sitting there and they're looking at me, and she's like, "Oh, well, you're so articulate." And I'm like, "Am I not supposed to be?" So it was, and I'm not I love everybody. I'm not a person who um, is prejudiced or anything like that. I come from a very diverse background. My family is very diverse. My mom is multiracial, just all these different things. So things like that really hurt me when people mistreat others, no matter what walk of life they come from. I don't care what color you are. If you mistreat someone, people are human. Civil rights is a major thing for me, not just for Black Americans, but for everybody. That's a huge thing for me. Like, treat everybody right. And so I'm very passionate about that. I'm very passionate about, mistreating women or mistreating children, just different things, just don't do that. That's just not right. No matter what your orientation is sexually or anything like that, people are people and they deserve to be treated the same way as anybody else, on every level.
Okay. And so just so that it's clear to everyone who's hearing your story, sounds like there was a microaggression, like that said you were articulate in a way that implied, unlike some other
Right.
folks around you.
Right.
Yeah, I can relate to that. I remember in a mental health situation telling my mental health recovery story to someone on Capitol Hill, and and she was trying to be sweet, and she was sweet, and she said, "I'm very proud of you," and
Wow.
it was just kind of weird. It sounds like it was
Yeah.
that sort of moment.
It was very unusual, and I didn't know how to receive it or take it. And so I'm like, am I not supposed to be articulate? I mean, what are you trying to say to me right now? And I didn't say that to her, but I just, kind of looked and like, okay, what does that mean?
Gotcha. Yeah, and that's difficult. You can't complain about a compliment at face value. That's an awkward one.
Right.
So, okay. So, you've won awards and best-selling books. Which achievement of yours means the most to you?
Wow, that's a good question. And I'll always answer it this way because out of everything that I've ever achieved, I always attribute my success in those areas to my creator. And I would say that my greatest achievement, not only the day that I gave my life to Christ, but the second thing is birthing my daughter, because she has been a huge support system for me, like all through these years. She's part of the reason why, a few years ago, I decided to become a full-time entrepreneur. She was very instrumental in that process. And she's a huge support. Like, she's always there. She's like my number one fan. So I would say that that's my greatest achievement. Um, it's like I am amazed sometimes at the things that I've been able to accomplish in just the years and the time frame, because for some people they wouldn't have been able to do some of the things that I've been able to do, just simply because they would have given up. And so part of my fight has been I can't give up because there's somebody who needs what I have to offer.
Mhm. And so you just mentioned some key turning points in your life, milestones, the birth of your child, and a faith milestone. Were there any other big turning points in your recovery?
Yes. I would say this, I just actually shared this story with my one of my classes today, because one of the clients asked me yesterday. He said, "Do you attend AA and NA meetings?" And he thought that I was actually in substance recovery or had substance recovery, and I didn't have time to share that story with him yesterday. So I said, "I'll share it with you tomorrow. I'll let you know what's going on." And so when I started on this journey of getting into the mental health field, I was actually I had started working for a trauma therapist in Greensboro. And I was just coming out of doing my own projects. I was full-time entrepreneur, and I was publishing books for people and publishing my own. I have a publishing company that's inactive right now. But back then I was actually publishing people's books and doing their work for them. And so I was just coming into that, and I had like a revelation. I was sitting in her office one day, her home office, and she has this expansive library. And I'm looking at all her books, and I'm sitting there typing notes for her clinical submission. And I'm like, wait a minute, this is what I'm supposed to be doing right here. Like, I'm supposed to be working in mental health. And so I was still dealing with that adjustment period of coming out of a divorce that left me financially inept. I lost everything just about, and I was just trying to rebuild. And honestly, I'm just now within the last 2 years getting to the place to where financially I'm recovering from that. And that was part of that adjustment disorder for me. And so I'm sitting there, and it's like flashing across my face, your family needs you. So I started studying trauma, working for her. I started studying substance use disorder and all of those, alcohol disorder and all that stuff, just working for her. I didn't go back to school for it or anything like that. I studied and studied and studied and read books and read books, and then, went through the processes of certification, went through the process of becoming a peer support specialist, trying to decide whether or not I wanted to be an LPC, and decided that I didn't want to do that. So I wanted to do something different. I wanted to do something that would be impactful on a level that people could really understand. And so I went through the process of peer support, and then went to become a RAP facilitator.
Okay, and so WRAP is the Wellness Recovery Action Planning. And what
Yes,
does LPC stand for?
licensed professional counselor.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
Yeah. So I decided to become a RAP facilitator. Fast forward to like 2017, I couldn't find a job anywhere. I told my class today, I literally, and I'm not exaggerating, applied for almost 2,000 jobs and was rejected for every one of them. So that led me into even more of a deeper depression. So I was trying to figure out what to do with all these certifications that I had gained, my bachelor's in Christian education, my master's in Christian counseling, just trying to figure out what to do and pull all of this together. And I started working in the school system for Charlotte Mecklenburg school system in 2019. And that brought me to Charlotte, and I haven't looked back since. And fast forward to January of 2020, I put a post on Facebook that said, I'm looking for a part-time position in substance use. Anybody have any ideas, just let me know. And so a dear friend of mine who also works for Phoenix now, she messaged me and she said, please contact these people. So I contacted Phoenix. I submitted my resume on, I think it was a Friday or Thursday, I can't remember. But they called me for an interview. I had the interview on a Monday. They hired me on that Friday. So that for me was like, now I'm working in a place where I can utilize my skills as mental health recovery and wellness recovery, but at the same time, I'm healing. because part of my wellness is being able to go teach these people every single day.
Mm,
It is very important for me that I'm there to help them, because helping them helps me.
mm. And
So go ahead.
are you still in graduate school too?
No, I'm not.
Okay.
I'm not. I finished that, but I'm looking at going back to school, but I'm not sure what I want to do yet.
Okay. But I seem to remember you have an honorary doctorate. Is that right?
I do, for all of the books and things that I've written and all of the publications that I've helped other people with.
Wow. All right. I knew there was a doctorate in there somewhere, so I just had to pull that
Yeah,
together.
yeah.
All right. Quite the resume. So we kind of touched on this. Many people find that helping others is important to their own recovery, their own motivation. Tell us a little bit about that in your life.
I've always been that individual that felt like, I needed to help someone. In fact, there's a section in my first book, His Purpose, My Praise, where I was having a conversation with my mom. We were on the way to Atlanta to take my nephew home, and we had a conversation about how, as a child, I always wanted to fix things. I always wanted to heal everything. And she helped me remember that there was a time when I was a child where a bird had fallen in our yard and the wing of the bird was broken. And I literally picked the bird up and was nurturing it. And I didn't remember
Oh,
that. And she said, yeah, you've always wanted to help people. You've always wanted to heal everything. And so part of my recovery has been not only, taking charge of my life, managing negative thoughts, because I used to have a whole lot of them, managing that anxiety by using coping skills and wellness tools and all of those things. But part of my recovery is just real important on making sure that I do what I'm called to do, and that is helping others. I know that without a shadow of a doubt. I've known that my entire life. I just didn't know what vehicle that looked like or what avenue that looked like. But now I know without a shadow of a doubt that I am fully walking in purpose and working at the place that I'm supposed to be.
mm. And are you a North Carolina native? Is that where you grew
I
up?
am, yes.
Right. Okay. So what do you say when you meet a young person, maybe someone who reminds you of yourself, who struggled with an abusive relationship or some family dynamics? What do you say to encourage them in their recovery?
Um, it depends really on the situation and what they're looking for, but I always encourage them never to give up, and when they're ready to come out of that situation or they're ready to move forward, that there are resources available to help them, that they don't have to suffer in silence or suffer alone. And a lot of times, what I found just working for Phoenix, some of the younger people, they will tell you exactly what is on their mind, but they also sort of hide what they need. They won't tell you every time they need something. And so, they try to figure it out on their own or whatever, but I let them know, you're not by yourself. There are supports available. You can accomplish anything that you put your mind to. You can do this. I'm really big on positive affirmations and encouragement and just letting people know that you don't have to do this by yourself.
Hmm. When I think of myself as a younger person, I rarely knew what I needed. How do you get through that?
That's a good question, because I can relate. A lot of times I didn't know what I needed. I knew I needed something. I knew I was searching for something. I knew that there was a void that needed to be filled. And so one of the things that I do with my classes, because they range from younger, like 18, to older, and I try to cater to all learning styles, is I help them discover what their purpose is and what their gifts are. And that usually leads them to what they need, and they will eventually tell what they need.
Hmm. I love how positive that is. It's really focusing on their strengths and how can we build on your strengths and find a path that way.
Right.
That's pretty neat. So what gives you hope?
Whew, my clients, my family, my creator, my mentors. I cannot stress enough, Peg, how many people have just been a positive support for me.
Mm,
Even times when they've been very firm or, just rigid, and just, times when I was rebellious or hard headed, and they just had to just say, you know what, this is the way it is, and either you do it this way or it's just not going to be done. Just that adamant, just, go for it, you have to do this or you're not going to survive mentality. I've had some amazing mentors in my life and some amazing teachers, and even times when there have been people that were in my life that walked away, I began to look at everybody as a teacher. Everybody who comes into my life is a teacher of some aspect, and I didn't learn that concept until one of my mentors told me that one day. He said, everybody that comes into your life teaches you something. So
mhm,
start grasping those lessons.
mhm. Right. And we've got a really neat comment in the chat box from Linda. For her, what comes to mind hearing you describe your purpose is Ephesians 2:10, for we are his workmanship created in Christ Jesus for good works, which God prepared beforehand that we should walk in them. That's very lovely. Thank you,
Oh,
Linda.
wow. Thank you.
hmm And of course, at NAMI, we believe whatever path you are on, we support that.
Right.
God, no God, something in between. It's all good with us.
Absolutely. And then, it's the same way for me with rap, because that, for me, rap, when I walked into that class, I thought I'm taking this class for a prerequisite to peer support. But, like I share with my clients, the first day that I sat there, I cried just about the entire time, because I realized I needed it more than just for a prerequisite. I needed it for my life. I needed to pull things back together. And just the whole philosophy of it being, open to anyone, no matter what walk of life they're from, no matter what they believe in, no matter where they are. My faith is my faith. I don't push that on anyone. If you ask me about it, I'll share it. But you're welcome here. And so I tell every one of my clients that you're welcome here no matter what where you come from or what your journey is. Now my
Mhm.
angel is barking.
It happens. I do understand. So maybe you could talk a little bit about rap since it was so powerful for you, maybe sort of help people understand the basics of it if they're not familiar.
Sure. The foundation of the class are 5 key concepts, and that's hope, personal responsibility, education, which is education about you and your recovery, self advocacy, which I'm really big on, and support. And we sort of, let people know that you want to work towards having at least 5 support individuals in your life. And RAP also includes responses from others when you're in a crisis or a situation that's called your crisis planning and your post crisis development. But we really talk a lot about action plans and triggers and early warning signs that show you that you're not feeling well. And just that overview of helping you to develop wellness tools that you can use and plug into your action plans. And you can think about, well, when I have this trigger, I can use this particular wellness tool. But if that wellness tool is not working, I can come over here and use this one. We talk about having daily maintenance plans and all of those different things. So I help them to figure out a plan that will help them improve their quality of life, manage their triggers, identify things that help them not, you know, that actually make them not feel well, so that they can choose better options and make better quality decisions.
hmm That sounds like really good stuff. I know at some point I realized when I start to feel impatient and get cranky with myself, that means I need to do some more self-care. And if I'm getting impatient and cranky with my dog, that means I'm really off track.
Right. Same here.
Right. Okay. Well, I see some wonderful comments in the chat box, and I appreciate your all the resources that are being posted there. We are going to transition to our video of the week, but first of all, I want to give a big shout out to the people who are working behind the scenes with us tonight. Mental health intern Patience Greg is on the chat box. Executive Director Gary Kreitz is always here with us too. He's helping out with Facebook Live. Shout out to bensound.com for providing intro music, which I actually didn't use tonight, but shout out anyways. And of course, thanks to Angel for spending your evening with us. So now, let's see, we're going to do a fun video of the week. With the days getting warmer, it seems like a good time to focus on dogs in swimming pools. Oh my goodness, how cute was that? All right. Now it's time to take your questions, folks who are with us in the virtual studio audience. If you're not as familiar with Zoom, you might be wondering, how do I ask a question? You want to simply click on the Q&A icon, which is on the bottom center left of your screen, type in your question. It will magically be delivered to us. So we've got a few lined up here already. How many books have you written and what was your inspiration?
Okay, I'm sorry, my dog is barking. I have personally written 4. I've contributed to, well, I was a co-creator of one that's called Organized Obstacles and Underdog Anthology. And it talks, I share my story in that one about my journey of depression and, you know, losing a baby and all of that different stuff. But it's about 10 to 12 different authors from all over the United States who have shared their story as well. So I have that one. And then I've contributed to 2 Christian anthologies. It's called Jots and Tittles of Scribes and Storytellers. So I've done 2 of those and I'm about to do a 3rd. That one comes out at the end of the year. I'm currently working on my own personal anthology called My Sister's Keeper. Is timeless tips and wisdom for women. So it's all women from everywhere, all over the country. And then I'm working on a 2nd anthology called The Entrepreneur Journey, Maximizing Your Gifts for the Kingdom. And I have, I don't know, I lost track. Oh, I have a trilogy called Testify, the Praise Literary Collection. There are 3 of those books in that sequel. The first one is about miracles. The second one is about unmerited favor and divine provision. And the 3rd one is the Alabaster Box Experience. So that particular one highlights, I don't actually have a story in there, but I do have a summary, and it highlights the place where I was at the end of 2017 when I was finishing my education. And I was living with my daughter. I had sunk into such a low place of depression that I considered suicide. And I was in my bedroom. I was lying in the bed. I had pill bottles, you know, just lined up all over my desk. And I said, no one will know, no one will care. And at that moment, I just started crying because I knew, I was like, oh, I'm at a really low place right now. I had lost a lot of income. I was, you know, still battling that situation of coming out of that marriage and not being able to bounce back. The therapist that I was working for her company just sort of restructured, and I ended up just not having a job. And I almost felt like I didn't have any purpose. But it was like in that moment, I just began to talk to myself and speak to those thoughts and just say, you can't do this. You still have purpose. You still have things to do. Your daughter's in the next room. She needs you. Your family needs you, just all these different things. And the next day, I shared it with my best friend, and she started crying on the phone, and she said, don't ever do that again. If you ever get to that place, call me, reach out, just let me know that you're there. But immediately after, I think it was 2 months after that, I lost a dear friend. And so in that book, I have a tribute to him because he was like a brother to me. And so losing him and just going through some of the things that I was going through, health-wise and otherwise, I was like, I need to pull myself out of this. And that book is part of that process. It's pulling me out of that dark place.
Mhm. And something you do as a coach is help people finish your books, correct? Finish
Yes.
their books.
Yes.
Right. Yeah, I've started a book, and I know some other NAMI North Carolina folks might be interested in.
Oh, wow,
that
that's
type
awesome. I do sprinkle. Congratulations.
Well, we'll see where we go with it. It's it's a long process, but thank you. So, question from Gary: are there ever clients that, because of your personal history, you feel you can't counsel and you need to refer them?
I have maybe one or two that since I've been at Phoenix that I had to refer them out, because parts of their story just sort of were similar. And so I found myself sometimes just like getting kind of emotional with those. And so I would refer those either, to an outside agency or something like that. But for the most part, I'm able to sort of manage my triggers and different things. And then if I am triggered by something, my clients usually don't know. I'm very good at not hiding how I feel, but managing how I feel emotionally with them, and just making sure that I give them what they need and then take care of myself.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. That makes perfect sense. I'm sure over time you learn how to sort of develop that neutrality and that
Right.
distance when you need
Now, a
it.
few years ago, I don't think I would have been able to do that, but
Mm.
just, I attribute some of that to rap and just being able to engage with the clients more so, than I have in years past.
Mm. All right. Next question. How do you encourage someone to reach out for help for substance use or mental health disorders?
Um, Usually for me, I don't know why, but a lot of people just, trust talking to me, or, like sharing what they're experiencing, and that rapport, building that rapport. So sometimes instead of just, telling them you need to go do this or you need to do that, because I don't believe that's something that we should do as counselors, is just providing them the material, providing them the information. If you want to come out of this, help is available. I've met several homeless clients, in the community, just being out and about, and they'll just start talking to me and they'll tell me, well, I'm suffering with this or I'm dealing with this. And I'll give them my card. If you want to come out of this situation, call me or come see me and we'll help you.
Hmm. And so you connect them with other services then?
I either connect them with other services if they can't be helped through Phoenix, or coordinate other community resources for them.
Wow, that's wonderful. All right. And actually, I would just want to go back to that. There's so much need for homelessness. And I know when you're homeless, you're disconnected. You may not have a phone, you don't have an address, and
Right.
all these little barriers really add up to a wall of separation that keeps the person out of services and out of community, and they feel, less and less worthy. So I'm so glad that you've reached out and made that possibility happen for folks.
Right.
Okay, I used to work in supportive housing.
Oh,
Um,
wow, okay.
so what has your growth been like during your PTSD and with all you have endured?
What has my growth been like? I would say this. Years ago, I used to have tantrums when things didn't go my way. Back in my early 20s, and just, just frustrated a lot, angry a lot because of the things that happened. Um, Struggled with my own insecurities and different things. I was bullied in school. I was a very high achiever, academic achiever, overachiever sometimes, just really throwing myself into things just to hide the trauma or get away from the experiences. And I would say that my last from the time that I got divorced, or actually the time that we got separated in my second marriage, that was a tremendous growth process for me, because I had to grow through being displaced again, being homeless myself or in transition, being without income, completely losing everything, fighting with him over all of the things that, he just sort of took me through, and coming to a place, I think it was in 2018, of forgiving him finally. And it was only after he said, I want to sincerely apologize to you for the things that took place. And so that process alone, writing that book, His Purpose, My Praise, was my first, it wasn't my first written work, but it was my first published work. And even with that, I had written the book in 3 months, finished it. It was ready to go, submitted it to my mentor for him to read and write the foreword for. The mentor that I mentioned that told me that they're teachers, he passed away a few years ago. But before he passed away, he wrote the foreword for that book. And so just going through that and watching myself come to a place of, you're not angry with him anymore. You're not angry with yourself anymore. You're not angry with your family anymore. You don't blame anybody else anymore. You're taking responsibility for yourself now, and you're going to fight through this. And even, I shared earlier about my grandmother. She is like one of my rocks. But when she was drinking, it was scary. It was hurtful. But I finally got to a place, I think my early 20s, where I said, I forgive her, and I forgive the situation. She now has been in recovery. I'm almost 50, so I would say she's been in recovery about 30 years,
Mm.
complete recovery for 30 years. And she has, I share with my group sometime that she was part of my process of learning how to navigate life. Everywhere she went, I was on her heels. If she was going to work, I wanted to be with her. If she was planting a garden, I wanted to be right there. She taught me how to collect rocks and, determine what they were. And, she taught me about nature, and she taught me all these different things. And so instead of holding on to the anger that I felt whenever I saw her drinking, I just released it. That was part of that growth process. That was part of that trauma that I had to deal with. And so finally, one of the things that I did to honor her, and she is still living. I had her with me last Thursday. I took her home to see my mom. She's 92 years old.
Wow.
She's amazing. And I wrote an article about her, and it was featured in an Atlanta magazine. So, just to honor the things that she's done and not to harp on the negativity. So that was part of that growth of overcoming the PTSD as well.
Mm. It sounds like she was a Renaissance woman.
Yes. And she still gets around and does things for herself. And she's amazing.
That's wonderful. I want to thank David on Facebook for sharing a rather unusual free resource for promoting positive childhood experiences and preventing adverse child experiences, or ACEs. Parenting Norm bumper stickers. Advancing Parenting, a nonprofit out of Camarillo, California, produces these products. Very interesting stuff. Advancingparenting.org. Thank you for that, David, on Facebook. That's neat. Definitely a creative approach to it. This is a fun question. You spoke of your dog Angel. How did you come to adopt her?
Okay, I'll share that again. I shared it with Peg in the beginning before we went live. Last year, well, actually, when I moved to Charlotte, I was without housing. So I ended up, my ex-boyfriend and very good friend, he's still a very good friend of mine. He needed someone to help take care of his mom, and I needed somewhere to stay. And it was actually a very mutual, beneficial situation because I was in a place where I was in transition financially, and he just helped me. And so his mom, you know, she was spunky like my grandmother, and she just didn't want people around, but she loved me, and she was, you know, she was open to me being there in her home. So I moved in there, helped take care of her, and Angel was her dog. She had Alzheimer's, and she passed away on May 1st of last year. And just the natural person to take Angel was me. He wasn't in a place where he could really, you know, provide the nurturing and things that Angel needed, you know, just because of what he was dealing with. And I loved Angel. You know, I had been taking care of her as well for a year. So she's now my dog. She had been with Miss Roseboro for, I think, 4 years. She had her from the time that she was a puppy. And I remember very vividly the day that she passed away. Well, actually, the next day I went to the house and Angel was just trembling. She was trembling so bad. And he was like, please come, please come and just, take care of her. And I just held her, for like 30 minutes to help alleviate that anxiety. And so we've worked through that. We've worked through the anxiety. She had to be taught how to walk on a leash, and she had to be adjusted to a new environment, new home, and all of that, all of that stuff. And so she's gotten a lot better within the last few months.
That's very touching. And whenever the grandmother would call one of you, you both would come running. So
yes. Yep, absolutely. So she actually named us Angel 1 and Angel 2 because it would get kind of confusing in the household sometimes, as to who she was calling for. And so now Angel has her own social media presence. Everybody loves her. She wears all these little cute outfits and different things. And so she's hashtag Angel 2 on Facebook and Instagram.
Angel 2, the number 2.
The number 2, yes.
Very good. That sounds adorable. All right. From Gary, if you go back to school, any idea what you would study?
I think, Gary, I've narrowed it down to some type of health and human services degree or something like that. When I left Guilford College, I was majoring in political science, and I quickly figured out that I was not going to go back to school to be an attorney or a DA, which is what one of my mentors wanted me to do. But I really changed my mind after coming into the mental health field and substance field. So I really want to do something that's health and human service related. Or sociology.
That sounds in line with your path thus far.
Mm-hmm.
And so the next question, can you please share what empowered you to become a sexual assault advocate?
Absolutely. I have a history of sexual assault. When I was 15, I was assaulted, not raped, but assaulted by a kid in the neighborhood. And then I think I was 18 or 19, I was on a business trip. And this gentleman that was on the trip, he actually assaulted me as well. I've been in domestic violence relationships. I've been exposed to secondhand domestic violence. And my cousin in 2011 was murdered by his girlfriend. So I had already been doing that type of work as a volunteer. So fast forward to now, I'm offered this position, thinking I'm gonna, do substance use part-time, but they offered me as an alternative this position that was open and had been open for 3 months, which is the sexual assault advocacy position for Gaston County. They had not filled it yet. And so I walked in and she started explaining to me everything that this position entailed. And I'm sitting there like, is she kidding me? Am I on candid camera? Is this for real? Is what I'm thinking in my mind, because I had already been doing this for free for 15, 20 years, this type of work. And now to be able to do it and get paid for doing it and love it. I absolutely love my job every single day. There's not a day that goes by. I mean, it's challenging. It is something that sometimes you just sit in the background and cry, without letting the client know that you're crying because you're so touched by their story or you want to really help them. But I really know without a shadow of a doubt that this is what I was created for.
Mm. Can I ask how you got into the loop of doing that as a volunteer? Was that a formal thing or an informal situation?
It actually came as part of when my book was released, when His Purpose, My Praise was released. I had started going to this nutrition club in Greensboro because I was also battling diabetes, lupus, and fibromyalgia, and I really needed to get control of that. And I was sitting there one day and I was sharing, about my book with this gentleman that was in the club, and he said, "Oh, I need you to connect with this lady right here." And I don't know if any of you have ever heard of this story, but it was made into a movie. Her name was Cherie Denise Jackson. She was murdered by her boyfriend and buried in his mom's front yard. And the lady that owns that foundation, she and I connected, and she started helping me. We started working together. And then when my cousin was murdered, she started helping my family. She became an advocate for us. And she would go to court with my aunt and, all of, his sisters and different things. And she and I just formed a collaboration. And then there was another lady in Greensboro. She reached out to me and reached out to my family when that happened. And she featured me on her domestic violence calendar a couple years after that. And so I was actually just featured on it again for this year, for 2021. And so with that, just doing that work, I've done that with them since about 2010.
Mm. Wow. Well, thank you on behalf of dozens, hundreds, however many women you've helped and men. That's so important, just to be there at the right time and to let people know that that first reaction to sharing that particular kind of trauma is just so important to how the rest of the recovery will go. So that's so valuable.
Thank you.
Mhm. So it looks like right now we don't have questions in the line, so I'm gonna give some quick announcements. Next week, come back. We've got another wonderful interview with a young woman. She is graduating from North Carolina Central University in nursing, and she's just got so much heart. She's a NAMI speaker in her own voice. She has overcome a lot of difficulty also. Another unsung hero who's just done so much. She's worked on the front lines in the hospital as a nursing student. Her son overcame COVID-19 as she was battling it in the hospitals. And she's going to share her story of living with bipolar disorder. I also want to ask you to please fill out your survey when you leave this Zoom meeting. A survey will magically appear and ask you, how did we do? What did you think of the show? And it helps us so much to keep our funding going and to improve over time. If you would take a quick moment and help us with that. I'm seeing some wonderful notes in the chat box. Thank you, Angel, for empowering and helping others. You are amazing. And Fly Eagles. So I guess you saw those as well, since you're saying thank you. Wonderful comments from the chat box. Thank you, everyone. If you do have another question, now would be the time to type it in. We sometimes end at 8, we sometimes end at 8:30. It really, we go with the energy of the group and how long the questions keep coming. Is there anything you'd like to add, Angel? Any closing statements, or do you want to hold up Angel 2 and let us have a look at her?
Let me see if she'll let me pick her up. Come here, Mama. Come on.
Oh, look at her beautiful little shirt.
Yeah, it says Little Miss Flirt. And that's exactly what she is, because she has a little, well, he's not little. She has a boyfriend in the neighborhood. His name is Hunter, and he's a husky, and he's only a puppy. He's only like 2 years old, but he's huge. And so every time that they see each other, it's like, oh gosh, I have to get to her.
How old is Angel?
She's, I think, 5.
All right.
The vet wasn't really sure, so he gave her like 4.5 last year.
Well, she's got lovely ears and a beautiful brown-eyed girl you've got there.
Yeah, this is my girl.
And one last question in the Q&A box. What is your favorite pastime? That's kind of a fun one to end on.
Ooh, I have so many, but honestly, I think it used to be making jewelry, but because I can't do that anymore because of my wrist, I would say now it is probably walking and listening to music. I love being outside, especially when it's pretty. Going to a park. I've been all over Gaston County looking for the best parks that they have, because at home in Greensboro, we have so many nice ones. And Charlotte has a lot of nice parks. But yes, making sure that she's connected to outside and just, enjoying life.
Well, absolutely. Is there anything else you'd like to add? Any closing comments before we wrap up the show?
The only thing that I would say to everybody that's here tonight is make sure you do something for your wellness tonight. And thank you for being here and, just for listening to me.
Well, thanks to you for sharing your time and your story, your expertise. We appreciate it so much. And this is going to conclude our show. Another evening has just flown by. Be sure to come back, join us next week. Thank you for your inspiring words, Angel. And whatever you do,
You're welcome.
remember,
Thank you, Peg.
absolutely. Everyone, take care of yourselves. Go where you need to go. Do what you need to do and be safe.
Thank you, Linda.
Thanks a bunch. Have a good evening. All righty.